Moon Palace, Chapter 11. Mei Ling found herself inside the gift shop where she was before. She did not remember how she got back there again. She stood in front of a shelf full of miniature china dolls and picked up one of the dolls and stared at it for a long period of time. One would think she was examining the details of the craftsmanship, but one would be wrong. Mei Ling was not examining the doll at all. Instead, she was just holding it. The store clerk checked on Mei Ling several times and finally asked, "May I help you?" Her question startled Mei Ling's trance. She looked back at the clerk and realized she was out of sorts. She looked at the doll again and asked the clerk to gift wrap the item and quickly left the shop. While standing on the sidewalk a few yards away, she turned her head front to back, forgetting where she parked her car. Just then, her perception was distorted, and she fell onto the ground. Apparently, one of her heels got caught in a cracked pavement. She lifted herself up and was grateful that no one noticed her. She felt a surge of pain from the palm of her hand. They were scraped and mixed with dirt and traces of blood. It was around 10 o'clock in the evening when Mei Ling stood in front of Xu Ming's cousin's place, which was located around a corner of a main street in Chinatown. The place was called Jasmine Bar, and it had several neon signs hung from inside of the glass panel that said, "We're open, karaoke, food and drinks." Mei Ling's face was looking morbidly pale in the reflection of the greenish neon lights, adding to her melancholy that was wrapped like a scarf around her neck. She stood there several minutes, contemplating whether to go in or not. Then, as she was just about to pull the door handle, she stopped, turned, and walked away. Passing a few shops and looking down at the gift box in her hand, she recalled how Xu Ming pleaded with her. She headed back. "Mei Ling!" Xu Ming shouted through the loud music and rushed to her boss. "You came! I'm so thrilled to see you!" Mei Ling looked to a room full of people hidden next to the red candle lights on their tables. She couldn't see Xu Ming until she was a few feet in front of her. "Hi, Xu Ming. Happy birthday." Mei Ling slightly grinned and handed her a small box wrapped in red paper with golden Chinese character print. "This is for you. I hope you like it." "Thank you. I'm sure I will." Xu Ming smiled and took the gift and gave Mei Ling a hug. "Come, let me introduce you to my friends. You might remember some of them." Xu Ming led Mei Ling to a group of girls who sat at a rectangular table that was close to a corner next to the dance floor. "Girls, this is my boss, Mrs. Li. You remember, she came to my party a couple of years ago." One of Xu Ming's friends reached and shook Mei Ling's hand and said, "Hi, Mrs. Li. I remember you. My name is Chelsea." Mrs. Li, Mei Ling thought, and got a chill. Standing in front of these young girls, who probably were the same age as Xu Ming, made her feel awkward. She nodded and replied, "Nice to see you again, Chelsea." Mei Ling greeted the rest of Xu Ming's guests and sat down next to Xu Ming, who immediately squeezed Mei Ling's forearm and pointed at a man on the stage behind a set of equipment. She said, "Look, Mei Ling, see that guy up there?" "Yeah, that's my cousin. He owns the place." Xu Ming waved at her cousin to come over, but he just smiled. Feeling awkward, Xu Ming said, "I guess he's still setting up." "It's okay," Mei Ling said empathetically. "He seems busy." Xu Ming's cousin set a couple of microphone stands behind a TV monitor near the edge of the stage and leaned close to the microphone and said, "Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3, testing." Then he went behind the equipment and received notes from a couple of waiters. He read them and started to search through a shelf full of CDs. A rotating disco ball was above the empty dance floor, illuminated the ground with bright, colorful dots. One of Shuming's friends giggled. "Looks like none of us are drunk enough to get on." Many seemed eager to get on the stage to sing. Their eyes were focusing on Shuming's cousin. Sound came from one of the microphones. Her cousin called out a name to the audience. Soon, a young Asian woman and a middle-aged white male stood up and walked on the stage. As the music played, the couple were looking at each other while the young woman held the microphone close to her lips. Her face was distorted and her voice quivered. The girls at Shuming's table were making faces. One of them pointed her index finger at her open mouth, pretending to throw up. Shuming smirked and turned her boss and asked, "Mei-ling, do you want to pick some songs to sing?" Mei-ling shook her head and smiled. "No, thank you. I can't sing." "Of course you can," Shuming nudged her. "You have a nice speaking voice." "Thanks, but I'd rather hear you sing. I've heard you humming sometimes, and it sounded lovely." A waiter came by and asked Mei-ling in a heavy Cantonese accent, "Hello, what do you want to drink?" Mei-ling thought a moment and replied, "Mai Tai, please." The crowds were getting louder, and so were the birthday girl and her friends, who were on the stage right after the couple left, more than a few empty glasses behind. Obviously, they were trying to induce themselves with a lot of alcohol to gather their nerves to perform. Shuming and her friends were singing a song from the Pointer Sisters, "Slow Hand." They were swaying their hips and giggling between the song. Mei-ling was amused. She smiled at them and felt a bit envious. The girls reminded her of her fun time with Louisa back in high school days. Friday night movies, disco dancing. She was practically out every weekend. Shuming made another attempt gesturing Mei-ling to come up, but Mei-ling just smiled and turned her attention elsewhere. She saw a young Chinese couple sitting nearby her table. They reminded her of Yuan, who used to take her clubbing before they got married. The sight of the couple made her feel a knot in her stomach and a dryness in her throat. She reached for a nearly empty Mai Tai, which caught the waiter's eyes. He seemed to have a knack for noticing empty cocktail glasses from afar. He approached her and asked, "Would you like another one?" "Yes," she said. "I'll have a Long Island iced tea this time." The drink was much stronger than a Mai Tai. She began to feel woozy, and her cheeks started to burn. She felt like her body was melting into her seat, and the room was spinning in front of her. Mei-ling's mind was fluttering, and she began to see an image of a woman, the same woman that she saw earlier. Moy saw Mei-ling as she stepped into the office. Her face appeared to be stiffened. The two women just stood there looking at each other briefly. Then Moy looked down. Mei-ling broke the silence. "Tell me everything." The woman trembled and muttered, Yuan and I." Mei-ling could barely hear her, but she did. And as soon as she heard it, she felt a splitting pain in her head. She looked away in disgust. "How long has it been?" 2 years. "Why?" Mei-ling's voice went dry. The woman shook her head. I don't know. It just happened." Then she asked, Where is he?" Mei-ling was surprised that Yuan did not tell this woman where he was. Was it possible that the trip was for him to get away from her? Was it possible that he was ready to let her go before she found out? She thought to herself that she needed to stay calm or else she may fall apart right in front of her. Mei-ling turned and walked out of the office and out of the warehouse. She did not notice that Mrs. Wang was standing nearby the door listening. Mei-ling told herself that she would never step foot in this place again.